Alex. I'm president of Cal Poly's Forensics and Security Technology Club, and I'm going to show you what we've been working on for this year's Cybersecurity and Awareness Fair. Let's get started. Quick disclaimer, FAST made this demo and presentation for CSAF 2023, and all of the practices, techniques, and information that you see are meant for educational purposes only.
Everyone receives scam emails, but do they really work? Earlier this week, a phishing email went out to the Cal Poly community, and it got quite the reaction. Despite having a clearly untrustworthy link and email address, many people still clicked on it. But why is that? How effective is phishing and other social engineering techniques? And what can we all do to make sure that we don't fall for an online scam?
The easiest way for attackers to get your information is by you giving it to them. This is Cal Poly's single sign-on login page. If you want to access your student account, your Canvas account, this is Cal Poly's single sign-on login page. If you want to access your email or your school account or your grades, you have to sign in here.
You'll have to enter your login credentials. In this case, I'm using fake credentials, but the Cal Poly site recognizes that they aren't real and denies me. But what happens if I accidentally click the wrong link, or maybe a hacker gets onto my network and starts redirecting my traffic? Notice on this site that it says not secure in the browser. But when I enter my credentials, it tries to authenticate them. Or does it? It sends me to the famous Cal Poly stale request. What other hackers might try and do is just redirect you back to the actual login page. You'll think, it must not have worked. You'll enter your password again and continue on like nothing happened. But in the background, the hacker received the request from the website to log in and recorded your username and password. Would you have been able to tell the difference between the two websites?
FAST is going to look at 3 different ways that hackers and malicious actors can go about credential harvesting. We're going to take a look at email spoofing, website spoofing, and DNS spoofing.
FAST has put together a couple examples of each of these attacks so that we can better understand how they work. First of all, email spoofing. This is definitely the most common of the attacks, and we all receive a ton of spam email. But if it's so common, then why aren't there better measures in place to prevent phishing attacks and scam email? Well, modern day mail protocols really aren't that secure. When you send an email to someone, the receiving server doesn't check to see where it actually came from. Therefore, I could send emails to Billy Bronco saying that I'm google.com and that he needs to change his password on his Google account. Here's a couple of tips that we'll use to help Billy identify the scam email in his inbox. First of all, the most common way that phishing attacks work is by just sending an email from a random email address. If it's coming from an email address that you don't know or don't trust, then it's probably not a legitimate message. Next, make sure it's relevant. A lot of times scammers will just send out a generic email to their entire mailing list. So if you receive an email addressed to John Smith and you're not John Smith, then you probably don't have to worry about it. Another trick you can use is opening up the email header and looking at all of the information about the email down to the last detail. Included in the header should be the location of where the email was sent from. So if it's coming from a bank or google.com, make sure that that's where it says it originated. A lot of times, scam email will be sent from some free online service that acts as a mail relay. For example, in this challenge that we created for Billy, we used the online Send in Blue mail relay service to send our spoofed emails. Finally, the best way to be absolutely sure that you haven't received a scam email is to contact the person that sent it and make sure it's legitimate. Of course, don't just hit reply to their email to contact them. Next up is website spoofing. When you're on the internet, always make sure that you stay somewhere trusted. It's super easy for a hacker to download the code of a website and set up their own spoof that looks exactly like it. In fact, there are free tools out there that will do this for you automatically. When you're browsing the internet, the best way to make sure that you're on a trusted website is to check for HTTPS. That means that all of the data going between you and the website is encrypted and that your web browser trusts that website. Also, make sure that the website you're visiting has a valid certificate. If you're on HTTPS and it still says not secure, that either means that that web page's certificate has expired or it was signed by an untrusted certificate signing authority. This means that the encryption keys being used by the website in your computer to encrypt all of your traffic aren't trusted. They were created by somebody that the web browser doesn't know, and they could have been shared to anybody else on the internet and they could be looking at your data. While HTTPS and a valid certificate are really good things to look out for, it's not very hard for an attacker to buy a valid certificate for the spoof website that they created. However, one of the best things that you can check for to verify that a website is legitimate is the domain name. Likely the attacker won't have access to the domain of the website that they're trying to fake. So if you just check the link and you're trying to visit google.com and the link isn't to google.com, then there's a good chance that that website is fake. Finally, we're going to talk a little bit about DNS spoofing. DNS, or Domain Name System, is a service that the internet uses to translate domain names into IP addresses. When your computer visits a website, it needs to know where that website is being hosted, so it needs the web server's IP address. However, it's difficult for humans to remember a bunch of numbers and stuff that make up these IP addresses, so instead, we associate these IP addresses with domain names. Every time that you visit a website, your computer makes a request to a DNS server to figure out where that website is. It'll give the DNS server the domain name. The DNS server will try to resolve that domain name to an IP address. If it can, it will send you the IP address of the web server back to your computer. If not, it will give you the name of another DNS server that probably can. There are many ways that a DNS spoof attack can occur, and at many different levels. When your computer tries to resolve a domain name, it first starts with itself. It sees if it can determine what IP address that domain name points to without making any calls to the internet. Next, it goes to your router and asks where that domain points to. Then it'll go to the internet. If someone gets a hold of your computer, they can edit your system configuration files and change where your domain names are pointing to and send you to their own malicious website. They can do the same thing if they get onto your network and can get an admin access on your router. Then they can point all of the DNS queries to their own malicious server. That's what FAST did for this demo. We created our own DNS server and created a public Wi-Fi hotspot that pointed to our DNS server so that anyone connected to our Wi-Fi would be using our DNS settings. DNS spoofing can also occur on public DNS servers, but we're not going to get into that right now. When it comes to defending yourself from DNS spoofing attacks, unfortunately, there's not very much you can do as the user. However, security is becoming more advanced, and websites are creating more ways to stop potential DNS spoofing attacks. When you download a web browser, it comes with a set of trusted websites and associated certificates that goes with those websites. If someone tries to spoof their DNS and send you to their own malicious site for, say, google.com, your web browser will realize that whatever certificate is being used by that site was not signed by Google, and they'll tell you, hey, this site isn't actually Google, even though it's using Google's domain name, we're not going to let you visit it. In fact, one of the biggest challenges that we faced while creating this demo was trying to spoof Google. Trying to send an email using any email address from @google.com or @accounts.google.com or @anything.google.com will immediately get filtered out at the level of your internet service provider. It won't even make it to the mailbox that you're trying to send it to. Your ISP will just see, hey, this person trying to send an email from google.com. We know it's not coming from google.com. We're just going to throw it away. Also, the HSTS preloads on web browsers were impossible to get around. You can delete the preloads for practically any web service except for Google. It was very difficult to find a workaround to allow us to use any Google domain name and resolve it to one of our IP addresses. Trying to spoof almost any other company other than Google would have made this project a lot easier. But if we tried to spoof anything other than Google, then it would have been a lot less fun. Defending against each of these attacks individually is one thing, but what happens when an attacker combines them to create a legitimate-looking email that sends you to a legitimate-looking website and uses DNS spoofing to make your web browser think that they're legitimate too? If you're interested in learning more about this, come check out the FAST Club and we'll explore this in more depth.
I hope you guys enjoyed this demo we put together. Hopefully we shared a little bit about internet safety, showed how you can identify social engineering and email scams, and how to avoid giving your information away on spoofed internet media. Don't forget to check out FAST on social media. Thank you guys.
It's command
Oops.
I got fish.
We all do that at the booth.
Yeah, you got
big red X pops up on the computer while I just go, you got fish.
Oh, you know the fishing game for like little kids, like the little, like we should have that.